welcome back to the South Endzone. I don't know what to say. Like, y'all, it was ugly. It was ugly Sunday night. Did you get to watch it, Tyler? Did you watch the beatdown that we received from
I
Florida
guess
State?
lucky enough for you, I was working, but I did
Oh,
keep an eye
see.
on the score. So I said I'm happy with how my team did. I'll let you say
Okay.
what you
Well,
have to say
yeah.
here.
Well, we don't all get to play Middle Tennessee State or whoever the hell y'all played in week one. Some of us actually are gluttons for punishment and schedule really difficult opponents. I'll say, all right. So let me get some stuff off my chest before we start, or before we get into some of the other things. So I just have to give my own little rant type of breakdown. I'm very frustrated. I felt like LSU left a lot of plays, a lot of points on the table. Opening drive, you just shove it right down Florida State's throat and get down to the 1 yard line, and then run 4 consecutive plays from the shotgun, all read option, RPO type stuff. Which I get it that that's the offense, but at some point, one play in there, you got to mix in, get Jaden Daniels or somebody up under center, and just plow forward and try to get the short yardage play. Um, so there's that, and then they had another possession where they got stopped inside the 5 yard line and failed to convert or get any points. Could have had at least 2 field goals, but I don't have a problem with going for it and trying to score touchdowns. I just have a problem with the play calling and how they squander those opportunities. Then Kyron Lacey drops what would have been a touchdown pass, at least would have been a first down, and kept that drive going. And then we had another play where Daniels underthrew Brian Thomas on the left as the corner was coming over, and it allowed it to get deflected. And LSU dropped an interception inside Florida State's 20-yard line that would have set them up very nicely. All of that to say, at that point, it was still like a tie game. And LSU should have been up by like 2 or 3 touchdowns at that point because Florida State was spinning their wheels. Jordan Travis was not playing well. He made a couple of plays, but really like kind of got lucky because he underthrew some balls, and Keon Coleman went up and got one, and Wilson went up and got one. There was a lot of opportunity for LSU to really hammer it home, but first of all, no short yardage, and Daniels not seeming like he's got that same upside that like Joe Burrow obviously had, and that even like Garrett Nussmeier has, like throwing the ball down the field,
Yeah.
is really frustrating. But the other thing that's frustrating is, bro, why did they have Harold Perkins spying the quarterback the entire game when instead they could have had him lined up on the edge, rushing the passer, disrupting it, one of the best disruptors in the game,
Yeah.
and you've got him sitting back and spying the quarterback the whole game.
He's a go and get it
He's a go get it.
guy.
Have somebody else be the spy.
Yeah.
Have somebody else, somebody disciplined, be the spy, and have him go be undisciplined and
Let
just
him
just wreak havoc.
chaos.
Yes, exactly.
Like
So that's my frustrated rant. And the other part of it is, the third leg of it is, I felt like LSU kind of sensed the same thing that I did, where you're up 17-14 at halftime, in spite of shooting yourself in the foot multiple times in the first half. And I feel like they came out like their shit didn't stink, and they thought they were just going to lean on Florida State the rest of the game, and it was just going to work out somehow without them actually putting forth the effort. And I feel like they gave up at a certain level as that game went on in the second half. The third quarter, you're down by a touchdown going into the fourth, and it seems like it's still in reach. And they just, I don't know. It was very difficult to watch because I was getting sick to my stomach just watching the game just slip away, and there was like this helpless feeling, and I felt like they weren't really trying to like light a fire under themselves. So very frustrating, and I'm upset with the coaching staff. I'm upset with some of the players. But then at the same time, I flip like the switch to what's going to come, and I actually think that there's enough talent on this roster, and there's enough coaching talent in that, in that locker room, that I think this team still has, when you get Mason Smith back, and you get um, hopefully John Emery back, and maybe you move Harold Perkins into a more disruptive type position, I think they have a chance to actually they can still run the table and win the SEC. So like I look at it and across the entire conference, what's the big thing that has gotten every SEC champion to the SEC championship and led them to the playoffs and potential national championships? Quarterback play. And are we going to believe in Jaden Milroe as the guy for Alabama? Or are we waiting for him to just cough up that job? And then, you've got Milton at Tennessee. You guys have a new quarterback. Like Stetson Bennett era is over. So it's ripe for the picking. And I just hope they don't let Jimbo Fisher and A&M sneak around and end up pulling it off. But what do you think about the assessment that LSU could still possibly win the national championship, as ugly as they looked?
I mean, I definitely think that they can obviously still be a contender. I don't think these first weekend games, people sound the alarm bells on their teams pretty routinely. I think that you were fit, you know what I mean? Like you guys like coughed it up. It's just like you felt like you left a lot to be desired. However, you guys lost this very same game last year, and you were still competing against us in the SEC championship. We've talked about it many, many times. What does Alabama do? Late October, November rolls around. All of a sudden, they're playing their very, very, very best football, and it doesn't matter what happened before that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've lost embarrassingly to Texas A&M and Ole Miss, and come back and won the national championship.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I'm not saying that we're there yet. We have not earned the right to predict that kind of stuff coming. But it's possible.
The right time means the most than having to, an undefeated season or, like I said, we talk about opportune losses at the right times. Right. And, maybe your guys were thinking, oh, we got this. Let's, you said, well, let's just lean on them and get out of here. Well, they're still Florida State and they're not bad. They don't see, actually,
they're beyond not bad. Like I actually think they're going to win. They're going to win the ACC unless something crazy happens.
Like they seem better than the team you guys played last year, if I'm being honest.
Oh, absolutly, not even close. Keon Coleman is a huge difference maker. Yeah,
they seem like the Florida State of old. I was like, so they are a contender. Clemson ain't the contender in the ACC, but we'll get to that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that like these first weekend games, you just got to move on. And if you don't mind, I mean, my little 2 cents are in my weekend. Obviously,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Obviously, Todd Monken got hired away to the NFL. He's the OC for the Ravens now. So he gets to work with Lamar Jackson, which I think that offense is going to do great with Monken as the OC. That's going to be awesome. But like Mike Bobo was back, and he's been our OC plenty of times in the past. You know what I mean? He'll go away, comes back. Like he's a Georgia guy. He's one of those guys that they're always happy to bring back to the coaching staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, I actually watched Mike Bobo play.
Oh, there you go.
And I can remember watching Mike Bobo play. So yeah, I'm well aware.
So he's a Georgia guy that always can bring back. Right. I think he's a head coach of Colorado State and stuff like that. But like his offense is very clearly different than Todd Monken, where we were, going deep on all the time, and we were only up. I think we went punt, touchdown, punt in like the first quarter. So people were like, "What's upset?" Like and I'll be honest, me too. I was like, "Why aren't we burying them?" Middle Tennessee. It's not even Middle Tennessee. Who the hell did we just play? You said you have.
I have the schedule. Hang on.
Is that terrible?
I'll tell you. That's how bad it is. That UT Martin. My bad.
UT Martin.
I said Middle Tennessee State, but it's the same thing.
Like they weren't even like I mean, obviously like they're like a lesser team, but like they got every Division I team has players somewhere on the field. You know what I mean? And it was always 7-0, and then it was only like 14, and then it clicked, and it was 48. 48 plus final score. Like I said, I was working during the game, but like I said, I wasn't too terribly worried about it.
Yeah.
like people calling for Boba's job immediately. They do this every time. It's like, oh, they can't perform within the first quarter of the first game of the season.
Right.
Like
Right.
like Bobo does like kind of play conservative more often than Monken did.
Mhm.
It's like people were like, oh, 3rd and 5, oh, shotgun draw, what the hell?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
why are we taking the top off? I was like, we're playing UT Martin. That's why I'm not taking the top off.
Right. Right.
Like like I said, like I had to be talking off the ledge a little bit too.
Well,
I'm like,
wouldn't you say though that like the time to be taking those shots and seeing what you have and seeing if those plays can be made is against UT
I
Martin?
agree with that. Like, it's like I was like, why aren't we? Was
Yeah.
my thought. I was like, why aren't we
Mhm.
doing
Mhm.
this? And some people's argument is like, well, we have them in Ball State, and then we have South Carolina at home. It's like, well, why would you want to give South Carolina your film? And I was like, I
Yeah, I
get
know, but
that.
you can
I
just run somebody down the seam. You know, I mean, it's not
exactly.
you're not giving them that much film.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was like,
geez.
but exactly. It's like we can just dump one over the top to, I mean, we also had some new guys that showed up. I think it's Mackay Williams,
Yeah.
dog, young
Mhm.
guy. Lad McConkey's still working to come back from injury, so he's a good fit for now. We have Kendall Milton still working. O line looks good.
Mhm.
Defense still there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
as a, you know, like luckily for Georgia, that is like in the national championship seasons, it is you lead on your defense till your offense gets going. Like as the
Right.
season progresses, it's like as long as your defense is firing early, your offense
Mhm.
can catch up. At least that's how I feel.
Right,
You,
right,
you
right.
know what I mean? Like your defense
Yep.
can win you games until it like gets later in the season. Then you have to be able to produce.
Yeah. Well,
Carson
and
Beck,
it also depends on who you're playing too. Like, so
exactly.
you can even have like a dud. Like you guys had had one of those. I don't know if it was late, but it was midway through the season where Missouri gave you a run for your money.
Mhm.
You had like a Kent State game where they kind of
Right.
gave you a little bit of a run for your money. But you can get away with some of that stuff if your defense bows up. You know, you don't have to necessarily put up 40 points. You can win
Mhm.
22-20,
Yeah.
and it may look ugly, but at the end of the day, when you get to selection special time, they're not going to look back at that and be like, oh, look at this. This was an ugly win back in late
Yeah.
September, early
Or
October.
win.
They don't
As
care
long
about
as
that. It's a win, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and we also have
and
to
a
play all 3
conference win is a
quarterbacks.
conference win.
We also have to play all 3 quarterbacks last weekend too.
Yeah.
So Carson Beck, Brock Vandagriff, Gunnar Stockton all got to play. So I mean, all in all, that's all you can really ask for a first
Hmm.
game. It was weird. So it was a 6 p.m. like Eastern game. I mean, it's on ESPN Plus, so they can play that whenever
Right.
the hell they want.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, so we play Ball State this weekend, which actually has a betting spread, which the other game didn't. And then we get into South Carolina the week after. But all in
Yeah.
all, moving forward, put it 1-0, put that under the belt, and keep it pushing.
Yeah. So, what does LSU have coming up? Well, it's not Georgia. That G does not mean Georgia. We've been through this before, but Tyler and I saw this schedule come out. There weren't names, there were just logos. And so I saw that and I was just like, holy shit, bro. Y'all are coming to Baton Rouge September 9th. Get ready. And no, that's not happening. It's Grambling. Same logo, just when it's in purple and gold, you can't tell that it's not
Exactly. Like
black and
that's what
white
got
or
us.
red and or black and yellow or whatever the
Yeah, because
so
Grambling's
so
black
it's
and yellow.
yeah, so it's Grambling. LSU gets to lick their wounds and take their frustrations out on the the state school that they should be able to beat up on. And I don't know. Here we go. It's right back to Starkville the week after. So I'm looking at that just like you guys are looking at that South Carolina. I mean, that's South Carolina's one you cannot overlook. I think Starkville, Mississippi State, they play well at home. The cowbells are annoying no matter where they're playing, whether they're playing on the road or at home. Personally, I think you should be able to kick people out of the stadium if they're using those stupid cowbells in your home stadium.
Yeah,
I'm just like, get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I'm bringing an air horn to Starkville
yeah.
because it's ridiculous.
It's just
Um,
hilarious. I'm pretty sure noise. They said I think like all noisemakers are outlawed in the SEC except for those. Like
except for
I'm
this,
pretty.
and it's super annoying, and they're hella loud. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's just I mean, this is worse than the vuvuzelas. It's
Yeah, I
horrible.
said that before at the World Cup. It's like people literally had to hear, like you and I said, we need to go and just track people's
Do
hearing
the
from
yeah,
freshman year
do
to
the hearing
senior year
tests.
at
Yeah,
Starkville. And they're like, what?
right. Right, exactly, exactly. So it's gonna be interesting. So let's look at it for a minute here because we got so you guys have South Carolina, then you got UAB at Auburn,
Early for Auburn
Kentucky,
too. That's an
yeah,
early for Auburn for us.
Kentucky at home, and now so like there's a whole bunch of stuff. Devin Leary at Kentucky makes them different. We
Mm,
talked about no Will Levis. They may be better with Devin Leary than they were with Will Levis. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And then you have, at Vandy, that's a walkaway win. Florida, who knows what Billy Napier is going to be able to get going
shit.
by that matchup. And Missouri, you should be able to handle your business there, but we know what happened last year. That you're back at home this time, though. And Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, always going to be tough. You get them at home, but this time you have to go to Knoxville.
Yes, that's the big thing for us.
It's not quite. I don't think it's the same level of offense, but I don't know. Like it's hard when you watch Josh Heupel and the way that he has built that program up. Tennessee's a little bit of a concern. I think a lot of times we look at this stuff and we're like, oh, they lost Hendon Hooker and they lost this guy, they lost Jalen Wyatt and they lost all these guys. So they shouldn't be how good, as good as they were last year. And then last year they still lost 3 games or
Yeah.
4, maybe. No,
Tennessee
like
plays with Josh Dobbs.
they beat, yeah, right. And they beat Alabama last year.
Yeah.
And so that program is starting, it's to the point now where you have in the East, you have Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida dabbling a little bit, Kentucky dabbling a little bit. You get down to like Vanderbilt and Missouri, it's not quite as tough, but it's going to be interesting to see how when they realign things when Texas and Oklahoma come over. But you're to the point now where the East isn't a foregone conclusion.
Nope.
And the West certainly isn't because you've got LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, and you can't sleep on necessarily Auburn most years. You can't sleep on Arkansas, Mississippi State. They're gonna come to play.
The whole
And
West is
Lane
looking
Kiffin at
on.
Ole Miss makes them like a legitimate threat all the time. So it's yeah. So what does LSU have coming up after that Starkville game in a couple of weeks? They got Arkansas at home. Then they go on the road to Ole Miss and Missouri. Then you've got Auburn back at home. Then San Jose State. Sorry, and then Alabama in Tuscaloosa. LSU for some reason plays better in Tuscaloosa than they do in Baton Rouge. I don't understand it, but it just is. And then they've got Florida at home. They've got Georgia State and then Texas A&M at home in I don't know, a rematch of that debacle that happened last year where we shouldn't have even I felt like the Florida State game on Sunday reminded me a lot of the Texas A&M game last year where LSU kind of went into it expecting to win, and then when the game started to slip away from them, their grip strength was already gone.
Yeah.
They just fell off the bar. They just let go. They're like,
All
I
right.
can't hold on anymore. I'm
Yeah.
out.
All right. I
They
quit.
were they were just they underestimated it and it came back to bite them. But you wanted to talk about I think we've gone through that stuff enough given the fact that it's kind of a dummy week coming up this week. We're next week is going to be a lot more intense as we get ready for the first SEC games for each of us. But you wanted to talk about what happened with Colorado and TCU and
Hmm.
Deion Sanders. And I mean, everybody saw it. The transfer portal is alive and well.
Yeah.
And what does it mean when you can have like your whole, I don't know, 3/4 of your roster come over from other schools in one off season? And what is it doing to the sport? And where do you want to go with this?
Yeah. So like this is the two biggest things, and like people made comparisons, and I wanted to kind of like, you and I have this conversation of like, you know, the times are changing, and unfortunately, when times change, whether you like it or not, you're kind of forced to adapt because everybody else is doing it. You kind of have to do
Right.
it too. You have to play
Yep.
the game if you want to win it.
Yep.
So Deion Sanders comes into Colorado, says goodbye to, like I said, the majority of the team, keeps 4 starters, one of
Mhm.
which, by the way, I think safety, the one safety they kept, white kid, had a
Yeah.
pick in the end zone against TCU. Kid's good, by the way.
Yeah.
He was one of the best players in Colorado. Um, it's like you now bolster your team with a brand new team. What are they going to look like? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
when are you doing this for the now? And like you talk about like Deion Sanders in his pregame speech. He's like, we're not worried about it then. We're here for now. This
Mhm.
is we're here. We're here to do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
His son at quarterback,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That's
Like,
crazy.
and then you also have Travis Hunter, excuse me,
Yeah. Playing both
playing
ways and
over
playing
100 snaps
playing like
and
130,
dominating,
something like that.
and
Yes.
dominating.
I will say this, I was on so Jason Whitlock had a Spaces on Twitter the other night, and I was in there, and, there was a guy on there, a coach who was, like, one of the Last Chance U, coaches, um, from the Netflix special, and he was talking about how he's like, "I really think TCU dropped the ball on that." He said, "I don't think this Travis Hunter thing is gonna." I still put in a $5 bet on Travis Hunter winning the Heisman because I think
And
I win like $600 if it
yeah, I
hits.
put 10 to win a
Um,
grand.
so yeah, it's something crazy where, or maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's I bet $5 to win 500, something like
Yeah,
that. Um, so what this guy was talking about, and it's true. He's like, just just send a a slew of receivers, have them run like 2 routes in a row each possession, and just keep cycling through and have them just all run go routes on him. Have whoever's out there, whoever he's guarding, if he's across from you, go routes. Wear his ass out.
yeah,
He will not be doing that anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, instead, they're just like letting him take plays off and they're sitting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's there is a way to counter that.
yeah,
If you
and
got a cornerback playing both ways and playing that much, yeah,
yeah,
you can
and
just
then
burn him up.
and like the knock, like I guess you said the knock is that like TCU also 30 to 40 players from different from last year. Like, it's a way
Mhm.
different team from last
Yeah.
year. So and also Colorado's defense did also give up 42 points. Like, that there
Mhm.
is the knock there. But it's more of like the idea of completely overhauling a team in a year
Right.
from one
Well, and
season to the
LSU
next
LSU did that too when Ed
and
Ogeron got
playing
fired.
well. A team
Right.
that won, it's not like, oh, they went
Yeah,
from
1-11, and they
an
beat a team
8-win team
that
to
was
a
in the national
9-win team. They
championship.
went from winning one game last year to beating a
The runner up, the
yes,
national
the
runner
national
up.
runner-up. Like, I know it's not the same team that was the runner-up. I do get
Right,
that, but like, think about that. But think about
right.
that. And it's also they got some great players. Shador
They
Sanders,
had beaten Michigan. It's not the same team, but it's
yeah,
still like, damn, they beat Michigan
yeah,
because TCU beat Michigan last year.
exactly. And like 3 receivers with over 100 yards receiving, and like, I mean, TCU like did not play the best against them. I think the bigger
Mhm.
test will be Nebraska
Yeah,
this weekend for sure. I mean, there'll be Colorado. I mean, to be fair, that was at TCU, by the way. That was on
yeah,
the
yeah,
road.
yep.
Like, and it's just, it's, I mean, obviously, I could say whatever I want based off that one sample size. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And we'll have to see how things progress. But like, that game alone says a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're now ranked. I said it
Mhm,
before. I told my dad, it's like, I guarantee you they'll be in that 20 to 25 range, and they are in the 21, I think.
mhm.
And so yeah, they got Nebraska. Nebraska travels well. I mean, they're
Right.
a
Well, and
franchise
that's an old
incorporated.
rivalry too. That one goes way back to the Big 8 days
Yeah, so
when
they,
they were both in
so
that conference.
Nebraska will get up, and Nebraska, honestly, Matt Rule, I think they should have beat Minnesota. But
Mhm.
that's besides the point. And then I like to contrast all of what I just said with Dabo Sweeney and Clemson
Mm.
with, I'm not going to do that. These boys want to be here. And I do like sympathize with the idea of wanting to stay with the school that you came to and, earning it for
Mhm.
your I do completely understand that. Like,
Yeah, me too. Me
I would
too.
feel that way too, like 100%. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, when the culture changes and you're gonna get left behind,
Mhm.
it's you have no choice. You can't rest
Well,
on your morals because your morals aren't gonna do much when you're getting your ass whooped by Duke. Um,
yeah.
Duke, I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
Clemson, like, being
No, Duke's
like,
legit. Duke's
Duke's
legit. I mean,
quarterback.
I don't think they're gonna I don't think they're like a legit contender to win the
They can make a
ACC.
bowl game,
But
though,
they could, yeah, they're gonna be a bowl team, and they could disrupt. They're kind of like the Arkansas, Mississippi State
of the ACC.
of the ACC. Good enough to mess somebody else's season up, but not good enough to actually have a good season themselves. But I will say this about so we're talking about that idea that Dad was talking about with sticking with the school that you signed with and not flipping and going somewhere else. I look at a couple of guys in particular. Eli Ricks left LSU, went to Alabama. Like how like that's just weird to me. That's I I don't know. That's like a Yankees player going to the Red Sox or vice versa. And it's you just like imagine a kid leaving Alabama going to Auburn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you got to pick a side, and once you do, like you I don't know, do the Crips take Bloods and vice versa? Like
Yeah,
you
and
know what I'm
also
saying? Like
Alabama wouldn't like you if you went from
at some
Alabama to Auburn.
yeah,
I
that's
think
what I'm
you know what I
saying.
mean?
At some point there has to be a line that you draw, and then I remember like Arik Gilbert came to LSU, and then left, went to Florida, ended up at Georgia, then ended up at Nebraska, then now he's like got arrested, and his career is basically over. Never really materialized into anything, and he was one of the biggest freaks of nature. He was basically like Vernon Davis, but in the era of like, could you imagine if Vernon Davis came into the NFL right now when the tight end is a premium player in the NFL? Because when Vernon Davis came in, they were like, we don't know what to do. They would get him like 5 targets a game, and that was like a lot. So this Eric Gilbert was a freak like that. But I'm looking at this, and it kind of reminds me of, well, two things. One is that I think as we move towards, first of all, this big heavy realignment with these super conferences and everything,
Yeah,
we're the college football is beginning to look more and more and more and more like the NFL every day.
it does, with NIL and
From
transfers,
NIL to transfer, so you have like free agency, you have
essentially.
money,
Yeah,
free agency, and you can lose a game or two with a 12-team playoff. Hell, you might be able to lose 3 games and
yeah.
still win the whole
You
thing.
could be the New York Giants eventually.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like shout out to Eli Manning and that team that started off 6-6 and then won like 10 in a row
Yeah,
and won the Super Bowl and beat an undefeated team in the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's starting to look like that. And the other thing that it kind of this whole thing with like Colorado and then like with LSU, because they did the same thing a couple of years ago, or I mean last year, after Ed Ogeron got fired, LSU went to their bowl game with 39, I think 39 or 35 scholarship players on their roster. Under 40, okay? Under 40 scholarship players on their roster in a bowl game. Starting quarterback
oh,
was
you
a
told me this story.
the
Yeah, yeah.
starting quarterback was a corner.
Was this the one against Purdue?
No, Purdue had a similar situation last year where they were down a bunch of guys
Yeah,
and didn't have, I think they had like somewhere in like the 40s or 50s
yeah,
scholarship players. But no, LSU had Jontre Kirkland, who was recruited out of high school as a cornerback. And he kind of went back and forth between corner and wide receiver,
yeah.
but never played a down of quarterback at LSU. And he was our starting quarterback in the bowl game because that's just where we were. We had no
Mhm.
quarterbacks on the roster. I think Garrett Nussmeier was hurt or something. But anyway, like when you do that sort of thing and you see what Brian Kelly did, where big recruiting class and then a massive push in the transfer portal to just plug gaps,
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of like expansion franchises in professional sports. Where like the Vegas Golden Knights, go to the Stanley Cup Stanley Cup final their first season. That never used to happen with expansion teams before. It used to be like you had to come out of the mud if you were an expansion
Yeah,
team because you
maybe
actually
not win
had
a
to
game for a
grind.
season
Right, you couldn't win. You were terrible for a
or like
few years, maybe a decade until you
a new
built your
college
roster up.
sports team. You know what I mean? When they add new
Right.
teams to a college, like you have to recruit
Yeah.
your 36 freshmen that will all be a 36 senior class. You know what I mean? You have
Right,
to do
right.
that.
But now it's just like, nah, the hell with that. What we're gonna do instead is we're gonna go pick a bunch of 4 and 5-star guys like Deion Sanders did off of a bunch of rosters, and I'm just gonna start fresh with a bunch of juniors and seniors who are already lit and ready to play, and they just want to play for me because I'm Coach Prime.
Exactly. And then
And,
US Coach
and
Prime will
that's
get a bunch of freshmen
crazy.
next year.
Yes, right. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
I don't know where it goes. But it's I think what we're about to see is a huge rash of new rules
Yeah.
because even like Mac Brown was talking about it that there's like some kid that tried to transfer and the NCAA won't give him immediate eligibility. And he's just like, you know, what, like, y'all let so many people and so many schools get away with murder with this stuff.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
it's just wild. And like, I don't know where this ends up. I don't know where this train is headed,
Yeah.
but I don't recognize college football anymore.
Yeah. Don't you remember I'm calling it the old days. I'm only 24, but like the old days of where you actually like if people transfer like if big time people transferred, it was a big deal and they had to sit a season and
Yeah.
they would have to see, oh, what are they gonna come and do after the season? They have to sit out.
I
Also, I think
remember
the
I
other
remember the
thing
old days where you had to like Cecil Collins when he got kicked out of LSU because he was like that dude was he was a weirdo. He was like sneaking into people's apartments and doing
oh
all kind of
gosh,
weird stuff and everything. Oh yeah, he had like sexual assault allegations and all kind of
Jesus.
stuff. When he ended up at the Dolphins, he ended up getting arrested. He was like climbing out of some or climbing into some girl's apartment or something like
Oh
that.
God.
And yeah, it was like climbing through the window. And of course, there's a rumor that he was smashing her and that like her husband came home and he was climbing out the window. And then she was like, oh my God, this guy tried to get in there. You know, so I don't know. But like the dude spent a bunch of time in jail when he was in high school. They used to like get him out of jail for games on Friday nights and stuff
Jesus
and then
Christ.
drive him back to the jail. Yeah, Cecil Collins was a trip. He was a monster though. Like that dude, oh my gosh, he was a beast. But he got kicked out of LSU. He ended up going to McNeese because back then in the 90s, because this is before everything changed, if you transferred, you had to sit out a year if you stayed in, you know, what is FBS now, right?
Yeah.
But if you transferred to an FCS school, you could play immediately.
Hmm.
So you had to take a step down in classification to be able to
Yeah.
play immediately. Well, now you can go from LSU to Alabama and play against the team that you were playing with last year
Yeah.
in
Jermaine
a huge
Burton.
rivalry game.
Jermaine Burton. Georgia. What
Yes.
we won a national championship with him at receiver.
Yeah.
He went to Alabama the very like the couple a week or two after.
Yep.
A.D. Mitchell. We won a national championship with him last year. He plays for Texas now.
Yep.
Like
Happens all the time.
like it's just But I also think the other thing to think about, and it's like this is becoming like a thing with like football, but also like sports with like less scholarship allocation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of teams are going to now leave some of that scholarship aside instead of for incoming freshmen for
Mm-hmm.
transfers. You know
Right.
what I
For
mean?
sure.
It's like, oh, like
Yeah, you're gonna have like people signing 15 guys instead of 25 just because they want to keep some
yeah,
spots open.
or
Yeah.
like for others. Yeah, I think of like lacrosse. It's just like like you only get very few scholarships, and so you could divvy that up, but you're going to hold some of those now to bring in the
Mm-hmm.
transfers. I think that's good. I mean, I'm sure it's happening in college football already. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not signing as many
Oh yeah, for
freshmen.
like some of the lesser sports that where you don't have. I'm sorry to call it a lesser sport, but you know what I mean.
It
The
is. I mean, comparatively, yes.
the less
Yes.
popular
Yeah.
sports. But yeah,
Exactly.
so I want to get in because we're talking about NIL. I want to get into this other story. I was telling you about it before we started, and this is just wild. So I was actually talking to Cooley Bravo. Shout out Cooley. We were talking about this on the phone yesterday about like some of these like rap contracts and all these different, recording artist deals where they get basically they make no money. Like I remember TLC was talking about it for a long time that they'd get like under $1 for every CD they sold, and they had to split it 3 ways. And they were like one of the top recording groups that existed at the time, but it was because their deal was so bad. And what it is it's like you're paying for the access that the label gives you and the
Mhm.
distribution gives you. Like they're like, look, we're going to get you played on all these radio stations. We're going to get your CDs in stores, blah, blah, blah. Well, now you can do all that stuff yourself with YouTube, with SoundCloud,
Mhm.
Spotify, where if you can get enough people, like we were watching one of our guys, Ricky Bascom, is like breaking the TikTok algorithm, and his songs are all over, and he's like really popular now. And like hardly anybody knew who he was a year ago, and now he's blowing up. This guy, so the NIL stuff can be really good for some of these guys because we've talked about it before. We think that it's long overdue that some of these guys get paid for what the universities are making off of them and what some of the advertisers for those universities are making off of these kids, right? We saw Chris Webber talk about this, go through it when the Fab Five was together at Michigan,
Mhm.
and how he couldn't rub two nickels together. He's like standing in line trying to figure out what what of the food that he wants to order he's actually going to be able to order at McDonald's while there's a kid standing next to him with his jersey on, and he didn't get a penny of that. Todd Gurley signing autographs for
Mhm.
$8 an autograph and
Yeah.
getting suspended. You know what I mean? All this
Yeah.
kind of crazy stuff. So NIL should be a good thing, right? Because it starts to get some of the money into these kids' hands where they deserve it. But listen to this story. Bears rookie second round pick, defensive tackle Javon Dexter, who played for the Florida Gators, is suing Big League Advance Fund for violation of Florida's NIL and agency statutes, according to Draft Diamonds. Dexter wasn't aware of a clause in his NIL contract that he signed. The alleged clause says that he'll owe 15% of his pre-tax NFL earnings for 25 years. His NIL deal was $436,000. And like I was telling you before, like let's just say hypothetically he plays in the league for 10 years and makes like a total of $25 million over that 10 years, 2.5 million a year. He's going to owe them 4 million, and then he owes half of what's left to the IRS, because you know how bad you get taxed when you're up in
Mhm.
that tax bracket.
Yep.
So it's just crazy. And then he probably, that 436,000 whatever that he made on that NIL deal had to cough up a bunch of that in taxes as well. Because you already bump up into a huge tax bracket
Mhm.
right out of the gate there. So what do you I mean, so I'll I'll just tell you my part. So first of all, you got to read your contracts better. You got to
Yeah.
pay attention to this stuff. And you got to get some people around you who can help
Yeah.
you navigate this stuff, who you can trust. But how dirty is it that like it's like it never ends? There's constantly people out there just trying to take a bite out of these guys.
It's like I wish I could say that like I mean that's like I wish I could say that it's that surprising that somebody tried that on somebody.
Hmm.
Like you said, like people are always trying to get theirs, and it's like that was a blandest name, like oh blah 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 fund. You know what I mean? It's just like
Right.
a conglomerate of money that they can throw at
Yeah.
kids and try to make it back. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and it's massively unfortunate. But I think that's why people that want to go in sport business law, I'm sure like a lot of what their focus is going to be is like representing these kids in their NIL situations and things of that nature. But yeah, I'm not wholly shocked that like people have tried that. I'm just like I just can't believe that like that the kid like like you're gonna throw this money. You least got to have somebody look at it. You know what I mean? I know that
Right.
400 grand is a
Yeah.
lot
Well,
of money.
that's what they did. That's what they do to a lot of these recording artists. That's the same. It's the same kind of thing where it's like, listen, we're about to drop 430 grand on you. You know, and so you're trying to read the contract, but while you're reading, all you can hear is 430 grand as soon as I sign this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So,
Yeah.
it's like the back end, the
I
back
do
end
get it.
hits
Like
you.
I
The
totally
strings
get like,
attached.
like,
It's
oh
the
my
deal with
God,
the
I'm getting this
devil.
money.
Yeah, it's signing a deal with the devil. It sounds good until the devil comes to collect his back end, and that's where it gets tough. So, yeah, it's a shame and it's a sad situation, but this is what happens when you start bringing money into all this stuff, and
Yeah.
it's only natural that it's gonna corrupt the sport too, because the sport, you've already seen it, where like the sport itself, to Dabo Sweeney's point, like you're messing up the sport when, as a coach, you don't know who's actually there, like for real,
Yeah.
from one year to the next, and it's messing up the sport also in the sense that like there's whatever happened to like the developing chemistry. It's like back to that Fab Five team,
Yeah.
even though they all came in and they went to the national championship as freshmen, like you had some of them leave, but there was still a group of them that stayed together. And that Duke team that they were contending with at that time had Bobby Hurley, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, Tom was it Thomas Davis? Oh shit, Antonio Davis. I don't remember. But anyway, that you had like this whole group of guys who like stayed together for a little bit,
Yeah.
at least until they were sophomores or juniors. Now you got these guys that they're like mercenaries. Like one year they're on one team, next year they're on another team, next year they're on another team, and it's hard to develop loyalty and really have that. That's why I think it was really cool what you guys did with Stetson Bennett the last couple of years, where he have a walk on who like wins it all. What was that, like his red shirt junior and senior year? He's like a fifth year senior, winning his
Yeah. So
second
all he
of back to
wanted to
back.
do was play at Georgia, right? And
That's
like
right.
he was a walk on, and then like like wasn't cutting it. So instead of like transferring to some of the Division I school, he went to JUCO,
Mm-hmm.
got a little bit better, came back, and then still had to contend with transfer JT Daniels
Right.
after the fact. You know what I mean? And then win that job, and then now he's an NFL quarterback. But like that, you're right. Like that's a story you love. Like people try to, yeah, I know he was a grown ass man, but like, listen, I if I was in his position, I say this all the time. You think I'm not going to want to win another national championship instead of holding a clipboard?
Right.
You kidding
Right.
me?
Right.
For the team that I've wanted to play for since I was a child,
Right.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we've all
It's,
done it, right? We've all like, you're out, whether you're throwing the ball up and running down the yard and catching it yourself in
yeah,
the front yard, like whenever you're doing that, you're like, when I was doing it, it was like, and Lemoyne scores a touchdown for the Tigers, and the
yeah,
Tigers win the national
100%.
championship. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like
absolutely.
you're saying that stuff, and you're probably saying it like, and Hohenscheld catches it or completes the pass for the touchdown,
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
position you're
Every
playing.
time.
It's like they
So you're
can't
always
tackle
your
this
team
guy.
on
That's right. That's
you're always your team on the video
that's
games. You're
right.
always your
That's right.
team on the, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
in the backyard, whatever.
That's
100%.
why
I agree.
I gotta be honest. Like I can't. It boggles my mind sometimes when I watch some of these kids that grew up like in Baton Rouge, and then they like go to Alabama. I'm like,
Yeah, you said
how
that.
do you not hate them? Like I hate Alabama. I've told my children, like, if you dare go there, I don't care how much, I don't care what kind of scholarship they throw at you. If you dare go to Alabama, you're not my child anymore.
Yeah, we try
I
to.
will
Yeah,
disown you.
Georgia keeps it all in the state. Luckily, for the majority of the
I'm
time,
kidding, but it's still I
it's
have
all
to
good. You don't
I have
have
to
to.
plant
I would.
I have to plant the seed to them.
Yeah, dude. Shit, I don't care.
I didn't
Yeah,
tell them I was going to kill them. I just said I was going to disown them. It's different.
yeah. And then as far
Um,
as like wrapping up, like this past weekend, the only two games I kind of wanted to like touch base on real quick
yeah,
is
yeah.
South Carolina, North Carolina. Just quick thoughts. I think that North Carolina
North
is
Carolina's
actually
legit.
like, looking pretty solid.
Yeah,
Their defense, for one, is looking not
yeah.
pretty damn good, honestly. South Carolina,
It's them and Florida State, I think, in the
yes,
ACC.
for
And
100%.
I guess like whoever the hell else is in the ACC now. people from the West Coast and
Yeah,
Stanford and Cal, they're not going to be contenders, but they're there. But
yeah.
yeah, it's UNC and Florida State right now that I can see.
And then I think South Carolina they just made a shit ton of mistakes in that game.
Hmm.
They did not look the part of how they ended off last year. They
Hmm.
did not look the same.
I think
Um,
Clemson. I think Clemson actually, while staying in the ACC, I think Clemson actually is better, much better than what they. I think they're similar to LSU. Not. I think LSU is better than Clemson, but I think they had a similar thing happen to them where they got down to the goal line multiple times,
uh-huh.
failed to score at all, and then once it got late in the game and Duke got a little bit of distance, they just pulled away.
Yeah.
And now you look back at those things, and it's like, man, if we punch a couple of those opportunities into the end zone, capitalize on a couple of those opportunities, it's a completely different game. We're
Uh-huh.
up by a touchdown or two late, and now Duke is having to try to come back, and they're not just running it down our throats.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Duke also had the crowd. I don't know if you watched any part of the game when Duke had the crowd on their side.
absolutely,
That was a
absolutely.
rock. I've seen those Duke games. Like you see, like this where it's like completely empty.
It was like
They
they were
had
at
it
Cameron
was
Indoor at that game, man. It was crazy.
yeah for like a yeah that was their quarterback's
Yeah, he's pretty good.
legit. I think
Legit.
South Carolina will be all right. Other game I want to talk about Florida, Utah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sweet.
I still
Oh
I
boy.
still think I still think Napier can pull them together, but that was they had an opportunity too and squandered it, and then Utah just pulled away from them and put them away. But
Anything you have for the
I should
SEC
have
games?
known that was going to be that there were going to be some little harbingers for how crappy that weekend was going to
I
be
mean,
for me.
the biggest SEC game by far this weekend is Texas, Alabama.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You want to
That's
talk
the
about that?
one. I think that's the biggest game.
Biggest
Period.
game of the
This
whole
weekend.
weekend is 100%.
Yeah,
There's not that much
yeah.
going on.
No, so let me pull it up here and see what else we got. I mean, Notre Dame NC State is somewhat interesting. That Nebraska Colorado game I think will be another one that's
Yes.
worth giving a look, just because we got to see how Colorado responds after a big win, if they can actually keep it together. Texas A&M Miami in Miami
That's
is
interesting.
still kind of interesting, but I think I have a sneaking suspicion that Texas A&M is actually going to do something this year and be a little bit of a threat. I just I'm just still waiting for them to fall apart, collapse like they should, because I can't stand Jimbo Fisher.
Me neither.
But yeah, that Texas and Alabama game is the big one. The only other one that I'm really interested in paying attention to is Ole Miss at Tulane. Um,
Yes.
that's a really Lane
Over.
Kiffin, Lane Kiffin in New Orleans, playing against, yeah, the over is very tempting, even though it's 66 and a half.
That's not
That's a
crazy
big,
for a Lane Kiffin
that's a
game
big,
at all.
but here's what I think is the most interesting, that Ole Miss is a touchdown favorite on the road against a team that beat Caleb Williams and USC in the bowl game last year.
Yeah. By the
And I
way,
know it's not the full same team, but it's Tulane's they've got something. So I don't know. That's one that I think will be
and it's plus
one to
money.
watch.
Tulane plus 6.5 is plus 100. So you're getting even money
Yeah, so you're even
on
money.
Tulane to cover. Just
There
saying.
you go. There you go. Yeah. Everything else is kind of gross.
Iowa State over under 36.5.
Oh God. Oh.
By
Well,
the way, shout
hey,
out to
look,
Utah State for covering last weekend.
I hey,
Hopefully it
look,
works.
man. Look, man, I unfortunately I put it in a bunch of parlays and I didn't play it straight. So I
They
didn't
came
hit
through.
because listen, I had a huge parlay. The only thing I needed was for Clemson to win on Monday night, and I hit like a massive like plus 2,800 parlay or something like that. And I was just like, oh, I got this. No, no, you didn't.
Also, I want
You
to
did not have this.
give a little quick, little quick T's and P's, thoughts and prayers to Butch Jones. If
Yeah.
anybody needs a hug right now, it's Butch Jones. As much as I hated him at
when he was at
Tennessee,
at Tennessee, yeah.
to see him just visibly like on hands on knees,
Mhm,
literally falling to his knees. He's the Arkansas State head coach, right? Because they
mhm,
played Oklahoma
yeah.
and
That
lost
was a beat down.
by 72 to
81
nothing.
81 to oh, is it
Oh,
no, that wasn't the yeah, wait,
I thought it was eight. It was like
I thought it
80
was like
something
81 to
nothing.
3. I thought it was 81 to 3
No,
or
yeah.
81 was it 81 to nothing? I don't remember. Let's go
But
back and look.
I
Let's
just the
see.
video
Let's
of Butch, like his players having to console him. He just
Yeah.
on his knees on the sideline. Poor,
Yeah, they better be consoling him. It's their damn fault. Like what yeah,
yeah.
oh, it was 73 to nothing. Somebody else scored 81. I don't remember who it
Also,
was.
shout out Texas State beating Baylor straight up.
Mhm. Oh, it was Oregon. Oregon beat Portland State 81 to 7. That's
Okay,
the one I was thinking
yeah.
of.
Just
I knew that the other team had scored late, but
yeah.
I didn't remember what
Awesome
the
prayers to Butch Jones, even though I hated him at Tennessee. But
yeah.
anyway,
Oh no,
yeah,
wait. Portland State scored in the first quarter. That's what it was. Okay, so they kept it close early. Did they score first? Hang on, wait. I gotta look at it. They scored second. So they actually uh Oregon scored and went for 2, made it 8 to nothing. The closest Portland State got from that point on was they cut it to 1 at 8-7, and then that was all she wrote. It
could you
was
imagine being Portland State like, oh my
73
god,
unanswered.
it's a
Yeah,
one point game.
73 unanswered points. Yeah, right. Like, phew. But yeah, so that's it. We're gonna stick around. We're gonna stick it out. It may just be another like long season of me congratulating Tyler on another national championship or another SEC championship at least. But I have a feeling that we are going to have a lot of fun this year, and I'm looking forward to it because as disgusting and disappointing as that game was on Sunday night, I think LSU has a lot more tricks up their sleeve, and one bad beat. Well, it's not a bad beat. We just got our asses handed to us. Hopefully, it was enough of a wake up call that they come ready to just rip people's heads off the rest of the way because that's the attitude they should have started the season with.
Hell yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the South Endzone. I am Chad. He is Tyler. See y'all later. Peace.
Where we out.